Video games based on card games have had a varying degree of success over the years. The likes of Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering has found a good home in the digital setting, while many others, whether based on existing games or trying to break new grounds, have fallen into obscurity in the shadow of better games. Although one franchise that has been on equal parts of great and terrible games is Yu-Gi-Oh! And on that note, and having already done a top 10 best Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games video, we thought that we would put together a list of the top 10 worst Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that are currently out there for you to play as of today. Although just before we do go into the video, if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10 videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. And with all that said, let's just get straight into it. These are our picks of the top 10 worst Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that you can play as of today. Number 10, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Duelist of the Roses. Released on the PS2 in 2001 in Japan and in 2003 in the rest of the world, The Duelist of the Roses came out before the extra deck was expanded upon, and should have been a simple and fun digital version of the card game. Unfortunately though, it takes some of the worst aspects of the Duelist Kingdom arc of the anime, such as the complete nonsense field stat boosts, as well as the game's challenge factor being extremely inconsistent. Number 9, Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories. Much like Duelist of the Roses, Forbidden Memories makes several unnecessary changes to the core gameplay mechanics in an attempt to make the game a little bit more interesting. For example, such as removing the need to tribute summon high-level monsters entirely. Major changes were also made to the ritual summon mechanic, one of the better ways of getting strong monsters onto the field like Relinquished, by forcing them to require specific monsters as tribute in a similar way to fusion summons. Number 8, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dawn of Destiny. While Dawn of Destiny looks significantly better than the previous Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, it falls short by simply being tedious to the point of boring. This title doesn't feel the need to change any of the core mechanics to make the game a little bit more interesting, but instead locks certain powerful cards behind multiple battles that end up feeling like more of a grind than they should. Possibly though, the thing that tops it all off is there is absolutely no online multiplayer support for a game that was released exclusively for the Xbox, a system that arguably revolutionized online consoles in terms of gaming for the future. Number 7, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Decade Duels Plus. A re-release of an even worse Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, Decade Duels Plus tried in vain to fix the problems that plagued the original release and falling short at every step, with players forced to use mediocre cards against opponents with significantly better built decks, as well as locking those better cards, including powerful synchro monsters, behind duels that were more difficult than they needed to be, and as a result of this, made for a game that was more infuriating than boring. Number 6, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal World Duel Carnival. As this game came much later in Yu-Gi-Oh's life, as well as being released on the 3DS that it had made before with Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, as World Duel Carnival is a lackluster experience, even considering how many of the new mechanics were introduced in recent years. And once again, this game has no multiplayer support for a card game that is supposed to be at least a 2-player experience. Number 5, Yu-Gi-Oh! Power of Chaos Yugi the Destiny. While sporting some of the most impressive graphics for a banned Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, it's also one of the laziest releases in the entire franchise. Like many other Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, obtaining new cards is an absolute grind by winning duels over and over again. The only difference here though, is that the only opponent that players can face is Yugi. While this does mean that at least the title can't be accused of falsely advertising in terms of the content of the game, it does also feel though that this game was a little bit of a cheap cash grab by Konami. Number 4, YuGiOh GX The Beginning of Destiny. Also known as Tag Force Evolution, this title has a unique backwards capability with previous Tag Forces games on the PSP that would allow players to access new cards and more points to accelerate their progress in the game. This small feature though isn't enough to elevate it higher than a mediocre status, and the game falls short in many core areas. The Beginning of Destiny has some of the worst graphics for its time, though not as bad as some of the others that would follow, as well as a repetitive gameplay that becomes very tedious and quite boring. Number 3, Yu-Gi-Oh! Decade Duels. The original game that would be later re-released as Decade Duels Plus. This game for the Xbox 360 was considered to be a huge letdown for most Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans, and made it impossible to attract any newcomers to the series. Aside from balancing issues that weren't fixed in the re-release, Decade Duels suffered from some of the worst graphics ever seen on the Xbox 360, even worse than what was possible on the previous generation consoles. Number 2. Yu-Gi-Oh! Falsebound Kingdom. Hoping to take Yu-Gi-Oh! In a very different direction that could have actually been a fun idea, Falsebound Kingdom removes all aspects of the card game's mechanics and replaces it with a turn-based strategy RPG, using the main character's monster cards as its creatures. While it could have been a great departure from the series, this game just ended up being a terribly made RPG that only the most hardcore Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans could enjoy playing. Number 1. Yu-Gi-Oh! Destiny Board Traveler. Yet another attempt to deviate from the major aspects of the card game, Destiny Board Traveler is a bare-bones digital board game that tries to use the summoning mechanics of Yu-Gi-Oh! To allow players to build their level and win the game. The playing field itself is far too small, consisting of only 3 spaces on each side, and this is on a 4-sided board, and the graphical powers of the Game Boy Advance are nowhere near powerful enough to allow players to actually see the cards that they have properly in their hand, let alone read the card text. The entire battle system is also predicted on the roll of a die, rather than any real strategy, meaning that the game is more likely to either bore the player or infuriate them. And so there you pretty much have it. Those were our pick of the top 10 worst Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that you can play as of today. So what did you think of our list? Do you agree with our top 10 worst Yu-Gi-Oh! Games? Or perhaps that you think that some of these games weren't actually all that bad and need to be cut a little bit of slack? If so, do let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. And of course, not forgetting that if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10 videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. I'll also leave some more top 10 videos at the end of this video, including our top 10 best Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that have ever been made. Thanks very much for watching guys, and I will see you all next time.